For our fall update, we're giving you insight into what we've seen over the summer, as well as if you invest $6,200 into your property, how do we get you an 8 times return, which we have for clients recently. Because it's so costly sometimes to do these renovations and maybe not knowing the little things that you can do to make such an improvement, that if you remove some old overgrown bushes, rip up some old carpet, paint out maybe a darker wall, you know what I mean? And just do a couple minor things to fix up a property, take out all the garbage and so forth so that it shows better for viewing. You're going to get such a massive return on that investment because now every buyer sees more value in the property and less work that they need to do. So if that seller then puts in that amount of money and they can get 5, 7, 8 times the return on it, it works for both because that buyer might be able to afford that much more of a property, but they don't have the difference in the deposit that they need to put down. And then all of a sudden, when you're able to list it for quite a bit higher of amount, and then it goes multiple offers because it shows so well, I think that's what we're getting paid for as realtors to do on the selling side.
Because like a lot of people, they'll walk in and they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to do all my updates before you come in," and I'm like, "Save your money." And I'll come in and tell you where the best approach is going to come to actually get the most money for the dollars that you're putting in, right?
It's figuring out how do we spend as little amount as possible to get them the best return. If you'd like to follow us or subscribe, check out our YouTube channel, like our links. It's always great to get more engagement. And if you have any questions of things that you'd like us to address or bring on different guests, we'd be happy to address those. For our fall update, we're giving you insight into what we've seen over the summer, as well as if you invest $6,200 into your property, how do we get you an 8 times return, which we have for clients recently. So these are the successes that we look at when we're preparing properties. But before we get into too much on that before and after and those things that you can really upgrade your property with, Ryan, can you give me a little bit of insight into what we've seen just, I guess, in the last month here coming into, September? Everybody's back from kind of holidays and kids are back to school.
For sure. Well, I think probably in August is that we started to see that number of listings have started to increase a little bit, right? I do think that also was a direct result of people being on vacations, getting their final, couple weeks of that hot weather that we were getting prior to school starting. We're only at 923 listings right now, right. And you're also looking at 222 of them are conditionally sold. So, when we're coming down and we're talking 700 active listings, we're talking maybe about, an increase of 80 or 100, right? Yeah. I don't think that that's going to last
maybe like
another
3
week.
to 5% of inventory. Yeah.
So I don't think that I also noticed as well too, just probably a week before September started, that the phone started ringing even more. Is that people are back from vacation, they're starting to get in the groove. Our market is quite cyclical to the school year. Right. And I do think that there's a lot of people that are bringing properties to the market and they're active again.
Yeah. And I thought it would stay a little bit busier during the summer this year, just because it was so hot in June. But you're right, it did slow down, and now we're seeing those different numbers right now. But I think I checked, I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks ago, and we're at 888 listings, including. Right, so we're really fluctuating on those.
Yeah, but we're 100 listings back. We're still in a supply deficit.
Yeah, we're not over 1,000. We should be at 2,000.
We should be at 2, right? So I also think that people aren't maybe putting, and this maybe leads into something, is that I find a lot of clients in the last little bit have been just kind of saying, you know what, the market's so hot. Why do I need to do all these extra things to my property? It's just going to sell anyways. What's your thoughts on that, Greg? Love to hear your opinion.
Well, it's an interesting question because I think there's 2 sides of it. One is that same person that is looking to sell their house and do no work is that same person that's looking at properties and saying, I want a house that's move-in ready and I don't want to have to do anything to it and I don't want to pay a premium for that house.
Right.
Right. So then that same person has to take into consideration, well, if that's the way that you feel, that's the way that most people feel,
Right.
because it's so costly sometimes to do these renovations, and maybe not knowing the little things that you can do to make such an improvement, that if you remove some old overgrown bushes, rip up some old carpet, paint out maybe a darker wall, you know what I mean? And just do a couple minor things to fix up a property, take out all the garbage and so forth so that it shows better for viewing. You're going to get such a massive return on that investment, because now every buyer sees more value in the property and less work that they need to do, right? And what I'm seeing is that more than ever, Saskatoon is becoming less affordable. And when we sit down and we talk about numbers, what it's not taken into consideration is we're having some more higher paid jobs, but those lower paid jobs, the increase isn't going up as much, right? So when you're looking at buying a property for $430,000, you don't have an extra $6,200 to be able to put into it once you buy it. That's maybe part of your deposit.
Right.
So if that seller then puts in that amount of money and they can get 5, 7, 8 times the return on it, it works for both, because that buyer might be able to afford that much more of a property, but they don't have the difference in the deposit that they need to put down.
Right. Well, the deposit, and also I think that, you know, move-in ready homes are selling for a lot more than something that actually needs some work. Is it also, when you're looking at it, depending on what type of upgrades that have been done, is it, you know, if someone, you know, just for example, if someone's spending $400 on a really basic, you know, little bungalow on the east side, is they don't have the extra $100,000 to go in and do renovations.
No.
Right. So for someone to include that on their mortgage rather than buying a $400,000 place, maybe putting only 65 in, and maybe it's worth 500 at the end of it after the renovation, they don't have that 65 to put in and then add it to their mortgage.
Right.
And not to mention, finding the contractors, finding the right people to do this work is extremely difficult. Like, we're fortunate that we've been, like, born in, well, you were born and raised, but we were definitely both raised in Saskatoon.
Well, you weren't, I mean, you were born in St. Albert, but at the same time, most of your life has been spent
I get
here.
it. But
You're an import, I guess.
sure. But what I guess what I'm trying to get back is that people don't really have that extra money to be able to put that in and then add it on.
People
to the
don't have
mortgage.
any extra money.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize too is that you have to come up with it all up front and then put it on, and then the bank will then pay you back and put it on your mortgage. And it's like, well, if you have the money up front, why do you want to pay for that for the next 25 years and pay 3 to 4 times what that was?
I get it. And there is the other way of doing cost plus improvements, but you're also going through and, you know, and having to get all the quotes and that kind of stuff. And the timelines in our market is that we're dealing with a week, you know, like for conditions. We don't have people readily available to come out and to do, you know, full quotes on renovations.
Well, most contractors don't have time to do quotes on stuff they're going to actually get, rather than somebody that they're just quoting just for an open quote, right? Like, I mean, we are quite fortunate that, I mean, we've been working with trades and people like, I mean Lonnie and Natasha and Amy and all these different people for such a long period of time that we're able to call them up last minute and say, hey, can you fit this in? And they do, just because of the amount of work that we do. And they're very reasonable price as well. And that falls into a lot of other trades that we've worked ourselves into getting for our clients as well too, because we can offer that full service so that we can take it on so they're not searching around, right? Yeah. So, but it makes a big difference. I mean, I always love sitting down with clients and them sometimes not always seeing the vision that we have on a property. And then once it starts happening and they start seeing it, they're excited because they're like, oh, now I get what you're talking about. Right. This is way better than I thought, right? Yeah. And it's exciting. And then all of a sudden when you're able to list it for quite a bit higher of amount and then it goes multiple offers because it shows so well, I think that's what we're getting paid for as realtors to do on the selling side.
We're adding real value.
We're adding value, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. We're giving them a better client experience. We're taking a lot of the workload off them, referring this off to trusted people, and they get more money.
And we know what's going to make the difference for the consumer out there.
Right? Yeah, that's another great point.
Because like a lot of people, they'll walk in and they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to do all my updates before you come in," and I'm like, "Save your money. And I'll come in and tell you where the best approach is going to come to actually get the most money for the dollars that you're putting in, right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's simple stuff. It's having things where people can move in and maybe it's not fully renovated, but maybe they can see themselves being there for 3 to 5 years, and they can start chipping away at things when they have more disposable income to upgrade their home to a little bit more, you know, to personalize it for themselves.
It's amazing what you can do with a little paint when you can refinish, not even fully refinish, but touch up cabinets.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be replaced. But if you properly have somebody that knows how to touch them up and to restain parts of them, it can make such a big difference. And it's going to last for quite a long time too,
sure.
right? It's just that sometimes people don't know what kind of water damage and how to fix it and so forth. So, but you are right. It's figuring out how do we spend as little amount as possible to get them the best return.
Yeah.
And that can fluctuate depending on what price of home it is
Okay.
and what our goals are and what's happening in that certain market.
But would you say the average price that we're maybe investing could be anywhere is like, could be 2,500 to 10,000 for the average home?
For sure.
That we're looking?
I'd say
It's
that.
not-
And usually we're getting about a 5-time return on it.
Right.
Probably even maybe more than that, right? But at
Right.
the same time, I'd say that's at least it. So we're paying for itself. It's also selling faster. It's getting more eyes on it, and then it's usually going multiple offers, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, first impressions are everything in this, in any market. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's a hot market like we're dealing right now, but they're the first thing that they're going to remember, and if they don't like it, they'll move on.
for sure.
Yeah.
And so I see this continuing. I think it's become more important as property prices keep on increasing, because I mean, everybody is just maxing out to a lot,
Right.
right? And so that it just makes a big difference if people are seeing the value, and then multiple offers it's still happening all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that presentation is slowing down.
Right. So are we looking at, what do we got here? 95%
You're saying
sold out over list?
no.
Sorry. We'll cut
No.
that out.
No. I think what we're looking at is that we're at 45% that have sold over list, and
And 21% is within $5,000
within 5,000 of it,
list.
right? So,
Yeah.
and I mean, things are starting to sell quite a bit lower than what they were, just because the market was finding its prices, right?
Right.
And so now we found our prices,
Yeah.
and I think we can still push it. And if it's a good property, it will then get still, because it's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
If people need things and they need to get in, they're going to pay tomorrow's prices to get in. But we're not going to see, I think, as massive of an increase that we possibly did over the last 2 years continually.
For sure.
Just because of the incomes. But I mean, there's always, I mean, I was just at an event with RBC, Ramil Patel had us there, and we were just talking to one of the people, and they just said, like, when does this stop? Because people can't afford it. And I said, well, just because one person can't afford it, that doesn't mean there isn't a different buyer out there.
Right.
The buyer just continues to change, and maybe then that buyer that wanted that house now can afford a townhouse, and
Right.
that person that could afford a townhouse now buys a condo.
Right.
It's just what your wants are is not always what you're going to get now and into the future. And so that's just figuring out, maybe getting into something at the very beginning and then working your way up through the market, rather than getting that dream
Yeah.
property and living there for a long period
Well, your
of
buying
time.
power just changes over time as the property goes up, and if your buying power isn't increasing, then you just get less of a property at that
For sure.
point,
And
right?
I think the big thing too is that you sometimes have it to where like your property just keeps on going up in market.
Right.
So that helps you on that side of it. So it just depends on where you're at. And sometimes you might sell for a premium, and because you're buying into a higher market, you might actually be able to get a little bit more of a deal, just because there isn't as many people that can afford that anymore.
Right.
But that market anywhere from like 900 to 1.2, which used to be a 7 to 9, I mean, you can't find a property in that price point, and they're gone usually the first day.
Yeah, for sure. You know, especially if they're in the right location and move-in ready.
Right.
Right? So, no, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure. So as we see it, it's just going to keep on going. Thanks for joining in. If you'd like to follow us or subscribe, check out our YouTube channel, like our links. It's always great to get more engagement. And if you have any questions of things that you'd like us to address or bring on different guests, we'd be happy to address those. So thanks a lot and have a great day.